As everybody know, our season begins, training camp begins on Tuesday. We have media day on Monday. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to do my best to answer them.
Mitch, this team finished 14th in the West last season, obviously. Can this team make the playoffs as it's constituted?
Yes, we can. In fact, our goal every year is the same, to win a championship.
What has to happen that didn't happen last year?
Well, first and foremost, we have to stay healthy. And that begins with Kobe and Steve Nash. And I think our off-season acquisition in Carlos Boozer, who's an established player in this league, he is healthy. But I think a big degree of our success will depend on if those three guys can stay healthy.
How optimistic are you that this team can be healthy?
Excuse me?
How optimistic are you that this team can be healthy throughout the season?
Well, I think everybody's healthy right now. And Kobe, I've watched throughout the summer, going to watch him work out down in Orange County, and he's been up here several times. He looks really good. Says he feels great. No ill effects on either injury. Steve Nash, says he feels the best he's felt in a long time. He's been working out, playing every day. He's been in the facility here. And, obviously, with Steve, he felt good last year also prior to the season, but couldn't really put it together and play back-to-backs and get through the season. So I think we're a little bit more apprehensive with Steve, naturally, because of what he went through last year and his age. But he says he's felt the best he feels right now. And he has played back-to-back days here. He's played in the morning. He's come back at night. So I think we're much further along with Steve this year than we were last year as well.
Mitch, will there be any type of minutes restriction or game management, like maybe no back-to-backs for either Kobe or Steve?
Yeah, I think there will be management of players' injuries, whether it's based on age or injury. I'm not sure what that's going to be. That's going to be up to Byron. We may discuss it, during training camp. But really, it's going to be up to Byron. I do know Kobe wants to play. I do know Steve wants to play. So that'll be a challenge in itself. If there is some kind of a mandate to restrict minutes or games, hopefully the players understand and they work with Byron on it.
Do you feel like you have the reinforcements to be able to offset any kind of potential worst-case scenario with any injuries to Steve and Kobe?
Well, our roster was put together. And keep in mind, in June, we had 3 guaranteed contracts, and we didn't have a coach or a coaching staff. So we had a lot to do this off-season. Very busy in July, and of course, busy through most of August as well. And we tried to keep a lot of those issues in mind as we put together our roster. We do have several roster spots that are available, and we're bringing in some veteran players as well as some younger players, and they know that there's an opportunity there for them. And some of that was done, thinking about what if. What if one of our veterans, didn't, make it through the training camp or at some point during the season. So we've kept it in mind, and we've planned for the possibility. And we have the roster spots in case we decide to keep somebody.
Mitch, you've been cognizant for the last couple of years about not having the type of long-term contracts unless it fits into a player that you really think that kind of difference. How does that make a difference this season in terms of, is it a trade, is it waiting for free agency, the contracts that are expiring? How does that all wrap up into what you can get on the basketball court this year?
I think our approach is going to be similar this season and this off-season as it was this past season. There's only 3 ways to improve your team. You can make a trade, you can use your room to sign a free agent, or you could draft a player if you have a draft pick. So we did acquire a draft pick in the offseason. In fact, we required 2. A second-round pick, but we got the first-round pick for Houston. So we have a pick this offseason, which is a valuable asset. We have flexibility with our cap, so we could look to improve the team during the offseason or during the season. So we feel that we have, the flexibility and, the assets necessary to approach this season as we did last season.
How much did last season weigh on you? How stressful was that for you, and how much did you take that into the off season?
Well, it was a rough season. We've had rougher seasons. Personally, I think I've been through rougher seasons. When players go down with injury, there's really not much you can do. It's kind of out of your control. And when players underperform or, you're not playing as well as your talent leads you to believe you should, that's a little bit more stressful. And, you look for ways to improve right away. But when you have injuries, there's really just so much you can do. It's not that you throw your hands in the air and say, well, we're done, because you continue to look to improve the team. But at some point in time, that part of it's out of your control.
Presuming Kobe's able to stay healthy this season, what are your expectations as far as what you think he can provide?
Our expectations are to win a championship. I know that sounds, because expectations outside of this room might not be the same. But I'm not sure of the year. I think it was 06, 07. John, we were 42-40. And going into the season, there was a lot of speculation during the summer about one of our players that didn't want to be here. And we got a great start during the regular season with Andrew Bynum as a center, and then he went down 30 games into the season. And expectations going into that season weren't very high. And of course, when Andrew went down, they went down quite a bit. But we were able to make a trade a month later, and then 4 months later, we're in the finals against Boston. So our message, to the organization and to the players is you always go into the season looking to win a championship. That's how we feel, and that's how our players have to feel. And then they have to do their job, and coaches have to do their job, and I have to do my job.
How about specifically with Kobe's performance? What are your expectations as far as what?
I think he's going to have an excellent year. Once again, he's going to have to stay healthy. He's been working every day. I get reports. I've seen him personally. I know he's working and speaking with Byron on a daily or semi-daily basis. He's going to play differently than he played 10 years ago. Maybe not so different than when he played 2 or 3 years ago, because if you've tracked his progress over the years, from a wild, athletic, player in the late 90s and the early 20s, he's gradually turned into a not so much predictable, but a seasoned veteran, knowing when to turn it on, when not to turn it on. He goes to certain spots on the court. He doesn't take, wild shots. He doesn't gamble as much on defense. So I think you'll see a player similar to what you saw 2 years ago. And once again, he'll do as much as he has to do to put us in the best chance to win. That means if, guys got it going and we're scoring without him, then he'll continue to facilitate. If he feels that he does have to score, he'll try to score, and I think he will. I think he'll be very effective. I'm not going to predict, what his statistics will be, but I don't think for a second that if we needed 30 from him or 35 one night, I think he can get it.
Since you have been watching him a lot this summer, specifically since we haven't seen him, how is his explosiveness?
Well, it's hard to tell. I'll be honest with you, because what he's been doing has been, with the exception of the one time he played here, and I was not here, I've watched his workouts, and they were basically, him and 3 or 4 other guys going through drills. And, from a drill point of view, it's tough to tell. But once again, if he walked into the room or if he walked on the court and ran up and down the court, you couldn't tell that he, blew out an Achilles tendon or broke a bone in his knee last year. He looks, conditioning-wise, his weight is great. I think he's down 10 to 12 pounds over last year. There's no limp, and you wouldn't think that he's dragging his leg. He looks fine. Now, his explosiveness, understandably, is not going to be what it was 10 years ago, but I'm not worried about that.
Mitch, what have you seen just from having Byron in the building so far, with his staff, with how he's interacting with the players? I know a lot of this will come to bear during training camp, but what kind of an impact do you think that can make with the reason that you decided to hire him?
But Byron's been great. You know, he's in every day with his staff. They meet in the morning. They're on the court. There's only so much we can do in terms of the rules, you know. So he can't, you know, be out there with his staff, you know, putting players through drills and coaching, so to speak. But we're allowed to sit back and watch guys scrimmage. Very, very pleased. You know, I think the one thing he's going to do is really hold players accountable. And, you know, much has been made of his, you know, desire to improve the team defensively. I think he'll do that as well. But he hasn't coached a lot of these guys, and a lot of them are going to have to, you know, understand how Byron's going to coach, and he's going to have to understand, you know, what they can bring to the table, and that happens in training camp.
How often are you guys communicating?
Byron and I, every day. You know, in order to get to the court, he has to walk past my office. So, you know, sometimes they walk past quickly, and sometimes, but either way, I see them, and he'll hear me yell out Byron. So we communicate every day.
Mitch, what are you expecting from your two rookies? I know Byron's going to have to stay on minutes and everything, but can they make a substantial impact this season?
Remains to be seen. Julius is still 19 years old. Now, you wouldn't know that by looking at him, because he's really, you know, a well-developed, big, strong, athletic kid. And, you know, you would think that at 19 years old, you know, that would be down the road. But he's still 19 years old. And Jordan came out as an underclassman as well. So, personally, you know, when you look at, you know, who's going to affect the team during the season, over the years, I've never looked at a rookie and said, hey, this guy's going to bring us to the top. You know, it doesn't do any good to have high expectations, you know, of a player like that. I'm hopeful that during the course of the season and training camp, they'll both continue to improve, stay healthy, work hard. And it may be where it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, you know, 1 step back. I don't expect, you know, him to hit the ground, or either rookie to hit the ground running and put together 82 great games. That doesn't happen with a veteran, and it's been very rare, unless the team was really, really bad, that you see that happen with a rookie.
I think it was Nick Young in an interview with you and Mike, who was saying that the difference with this year and last year, he said that this year, players are coming in, there's a completely different vibe than last year. Are you noticing that too? And if so, what is that?
Who said that?
Nick Young.
It's hard for me to say, to be honest with you. The preseason, I mean, there's a newness to it, you know, clearly. I mean, Kobe's ready to go. Last year he wasn't, and we didn't know when he'd get back. So we are entering the season, you know, with our roster basically intact. And the team that we're expecting to field on opening day, you know, hopefully will play on opening day. So that leads to a good feeling all around. I will say the players that we've had in here, you know, whether they're trying to prove something or some of them that know there's a roster spot available, they've been working very hard. Of course, I mentioned earlier, it's great to see Steve Nash in here in the morning playing full court and then coming back at night. So those are all positive things that maybe leads to a better feeling. But training camp will let us know where we stand.
Mitch, you look at Jordan Hill on paper as starting center. I mean, you have Robert Sacre as a center, but the team has a lot of forwards who might have to masquerade as center.
Yeah, if there's one area we have, you know, some depth, it is between the 4 and the 5 spot, and I don't know who will start. You know, Jordan's been back about a week. He scrimmaged 2 or 3 times. He looks really good. But that's really determined during the preseason, and that's up to Coach Scott.
And relatively undersized guys like Carlos Boozer or Ed Davis play at that position.
Yeah, we don't have. I mean, we got a bunch of big guys, but we don't have the 7'1" player. Obviously, Byron knows that. So we're going to have to play a fashion, whether it's settling on 3 guys to rotate between 2 positions or 4 or 5 guys that rotate between 2 and 3 positions and give you maximum energy, shuffling in and out. I'm not sure how Byron's going to do it. But we do feel, and once again, I think Julius is going to play, but he is a rookie. But between those 2 positions, the 4 and 5, I think we do have a deep team. And although none of them, I think Robert's the biggest at 6'11".
Mitch, when you were pursuing some of the marquee free agents this past offseason, did they or any of the representatives articulate any concerns they may have had about joining the Lakers?
No. No. One of the players, visited us here in Los Angeles, and to be honest, before I even begin, our expectations with either player, just based on, what we perceive the environment to be, the new collective bargaining agreement, we never felt, it was realistic to think that we would get 1 or 2. But if you don't try, you don't know. And we went all out to pursue both of the people you're talking about. And I think we came close. I really do. But it doesn't really matter, that you come close. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Does that change the strategy for next offseason?
Nope.
Or is it just try again?
Not at all. No, we have, I believe we have a lot to offer. We still have to deal with the rules as they are today regarding max players. In other words, 4 years versus 5 years, and you get to jump a little bit less each year. So monetarily, there'll always be a disadvantage. But we think the franchise, the city, our fan base, the exposure here, we have a lot to offer, and we'll get somebody. At some point, we will.
I mean, Jeremy Lin's role fluctuated last year in Houston, ended up playing about 29 minutes, but was still super effective getting to the rim. Nash if he's feeling healthier, can that impact Jeremy's role? Are these all things that Byron will figure out, or how do you see Lin going into this season?
I don't know how it's going to shake out. I read an article today where I guess Jeremy and Steve spent some time together. I know they've been in the building together working out and scrimmaging, and there was reference made to Jeremy learning, to play the position a little bit better or a little bit more knowledgeable by playing with or underneath Steve, which you would expect. He also commented that it doesn't matter to him whether he starts or doesn't start. So he's coming in with the right attitude. And, for us, to pick up a player, like Jeremy Lin, we also got to pick out of that deal. Well, actually 2 picks. And at the same time maintain, our flexibility going forward at a position where we needed help. This is before we knew that Steve Nash was able to, work out every day and play every day and come back at night and come back the next day. This was back in July. So we feel fortunate, and he's young. His workouts here have been excellent, so we think he'll make a contribution. And he'll be motivated, like a bunch of guys on our team. This is the last year on their deal. So they're going to want to play well. I think a lot of them will play well regardless, but being on the last year of a deal sometimes does make a difference.
I was going to ask next, whether it's him or a Boozer or some of these other guys that come in these situations. Mitch, can that be good when you're building a roster to have guys in that situation versus having one like Nick Young where the deal is structured differently over a couple of years?
You mean having guys on a 1-year deal?
Yeah.
It cuts both ways. If a guy comes out just looking to score the ball or gamble on defense to get steals, to raise his stats, it cuts against you. If a guy comes out, and focuses, understands that, hey, in this league, it's a wonderful thing to be able to be in it and make a living doing this. And, here I am in my mid-20s, and if I focus a little bit more, and maybe I can do this for 7 or 8 more years, then it's a plus.
Mitch, what does what you've seen so far from Kobe mean to you? Does it change anything in your mind as you compared to months ago? What does it mean for you?
Well, it's comforting to know that he will be here for 2 more years, and he's healthy. And with him on the court, we're always going to have a chance to win games. And if we're lucky enough to have acquired a player during the off season that plays better than expected, or if we can get somebody during the season, and that's not to say that we will, then you can have a really, really good team. So he gives you a chance, no matter the circumstances, to be really good.
By the same token, Nash going from a total question mark to where he is now, does that change dramatically?
Like at the beginning, Kevin, for me, a lot of our success this year is going to rely on of course, Steve and Kobe, and I mentioned Carlos also. 3 proven, and we've got other veterans on this team too. I mean, Jeremy's, a veteran. Jordan Hill's a veteran. Without looking at the roster and going through each name, but those are our 3 most accomplished veterans, and they're going to have to stay healthy, and they're going to have to play at their best, for us to be the best team we can be.
Mitch, will you be actively pursuing trades during the season, or do you allow that kind of, if things come, that they come, but,
Yeah, it's that part of the business is kind of not cyclical. There are certain times of the year where there's a lot of activity, and there are certain times where there's not. Although there was a deal yesterday, there's not much activity right now. Teams are looking to fill out their rosters, bring 19 or 20 players to training camp. For a month, it's all about cutting players, not getting players. There'll be some trade talk, but very little. And then everybody's going to want to see how their team performs in the first month and a half of the season. We all love our team going into the season. Everybody does. And then at some point in December, either you still love your team or you don't. And, things start to pick up a little bit as you approach the trade deadline. So I don't expect that to be any different with us. That's not to say that tomorrow there won't be a phone call where something happens unusual, but we don't expect it.
In terms of your analysis of last year's team, specifically on the defensive end, and why that area was never able to excel?
A lot of reasons. Just a bunch of reasons. And, we never had our team healthy on the court. And primarily, I think that was, the reason.
Does this team have the personnel within the defensive teams?
I think so. I think we're deep enough where Byron chooses to, shuffle guys in and out. I think we've got a good mix of veteran players, and then some players that are younger and not so much veteran, but loaded with energy and athleticism. And some of our guys have really good skill levels. The defensive part of the game, if you're in the NBA at this level, you can defend. The key is being able to defend as a team. And once again, that seems to be Byron's number one priority going into the season, is getting this team to defend at a high level.
Is there something you saw in Julius over summer league or perhaps workouts here at the gym that you maybe didn't know or weren't aware of, that he does better or worse? Or anything, any impressions you got out of him?
Not really. I look at him, and once again, I don't want to keep on going over and over and saying he's a rookie, but he is a young rookie. And there are going to be moments when he plays just great, and then there are going to be moments where he'll grab a rebound, bring the ball down the court, offensive charge, defensive foul, drop his head, get frustrated, get a technical foul, because you'll see, and then there'll be moments when he'll just be great. So I don't think he's great size. He's got super quick feet. And I think if there's one thing that you didn't see as much at Kentucky as you do watching him every day, is he's got really gifted quickness, first step. He loves contact. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not good. But he loves contact. But he's going to have to learn to play the game at this level.
And can that quickness be used at small forward, or you think he's pretty much a power forward?
I'm not so sure if it can be done at the. He can defend small forwards. You know, and every coach coaches, you know, the 5 positions differently. You know, last year there was, and in our NBA today you have a stretch 4, and some coaches don't have stretch 4s. So it really depends on what the coach wants to do. He can defend small forwards. Do I see him right now as a prototypical small forward? Probably not. But I could see him bringing the ball up the court. I could see him, you know, seeing a gap, you know, getting a step on a guy, making a play, whether it's finishing or finding somebody that's open. You know, and those are, you know, ball handling skills that you wouldn't see power forwards have very often.
It was Julius's inexperience and youth a big reason why you went out and got someone like Carlos to be that veteran, to kind of give Julius that cushion to not have to perform so quickly?
You know, we didn't plan on getting Carlos. You know, in fact, you know, it was an amnesty situation, and we did most of our work, and then we kept in mind, well, you know, if we waive this guy, if we do this, you know, maybe we can get $3 or $4 million of cap room, because in order to put a claim in for an amnesty player, you have to use cap room. And we're not used to having much cap room around here. So just managing our cap room, you know, from June, you know, through July was really an eye-opener for us, and we spent a lot of time on it. But quite frankly, just putting a bid in on him at whatever the number was, 3-something, I was not in the office when we were awarded the claim. But when I got the phone call, I was shocked. I didn't think for a second that we were going to get him.
But the idea of needing a veteran, or at least getting a veteran to help give that cushion to Julius, so he doesn't have to perform at such a high level so quickly, was that important?
It was more geared towards trying to win. You know, we didn't say, hey, let's put a bid in for Carlos and maybe he can help, because Carlos is only 32. There's no reason why he can't play 3 or 4 more years. In fact, he wants to. So it's not like this is his last year and he wants to teach Julius how to play. Okay, he wants to play. Okay, but that will be a benefit. But we got Carlos, no disrespect to Julius. You know, in other words, you know, we didn't decide, well, he's not going to help us this year, let's get a veteran. We got him looking to help us win games this year. And whatever Julius gets, he's going to have to earn.
How much can you see Randall and Boozer playing together?
It's a Byron Scott question. We're going to have to go small at certain times during the season. We're not going to have a lot of choices. Julius is versatile. You know, we just talked about it. He can do some things. I'm not sure Carlos is going to change his game at this time of his career, but he looks good. He got here 2 or 3 days ago, and you know, his conditioning is good. He's ready to go. So I think they can play some together.
Anything else, guys?
Mitch, Ed Davis has had some pretty productive numbers, like per 36 minutes, but it's had some trouble getting more court time last year in Memphis, or for whatever reason it was. Do you look at that situation here? There's a lot of guys that can play in that front court, and same thing, it's Byron's decision, but that's a reason you bring a guy like that in, because you want to see what he can produce and if he can go up to the potential that he's shown at various times?
Well, when you have 3 guys on your roster at the end of June, you know, the real reason why you're bringing guys in is that you got to get 12 to 13 more players, and you want to bring in, which is not that hard to do, but when you're trying to bring in, you know, 12 to 13 talented players, that's harder to do. And you know, to get a talent, you know, like Davis, you know, and with the flexibility going forward, you know, and you look at every player, you know, individually, and you know, you try to figure, well, why, you know, wasn't he signed to an extension? Why is he a free agent? And you know, of course, he started in Toronto and then got traded. I thought he played really well in Toronto, and you look at Memphis, and you know, there may be a more established team, you know, with Randolph and Gasol, and you try to find a player that you say, well, maybe if we get him here and he gets a chance to play, or if he thinks he's getting a fair chance, he can develop. And big guys develop a little bit slower. Not slower, but later. And we're hopeful that he falls into that category.